second. Hello and welcome to the Think Tank. Each day we share the news in open dialogue and discuss how it might affect the business world. We speak with different leaders on crisis navigation and management, as well as experts in professional and personal self-betterment. It's meant to be a break. It should be learning, and it should be good news and ideas to start people moving forward. It's called Think Tank. Today we have another special guest joining who we'll introduce here in a minute. But first, we like to do a quick kick around to see who's joining here on Zoom. And we also have a live YouTube stream, which we've got 5 on right now. Very nice. So if you have any questions, anyone, or please do just put a comment in and let us know where you're hailing from. We'd love to see that. But there is Robbie Sawyer in the top left corner. Robbie is thinker extraordinaire, helping people, what we're going to be doing here going forward, think different and approach challenges in new ways. So think about that for your teams and your events. There's Kimball Henderson reporting live from Autos. Yeah. If you need coffee and you are in Dallas, you should go to Autos. Kimball is a creative producer that makes people and content look amazing on stage. There is photographer extraordinaire Alberto Elizondo, sports professional, shooting pigeons today like the other day because there's no sports happening. Christine will learn about in a second. And there is Doug Carroll, executive coach, boardroom coach, helping people in times of crisis and challenge, put together a plan, understand where they're at, and how they can move forward like we are doing here today. T. Scott Anderson, reporting in from Siberia with his new scarf, is a videographer, photographer extraordinaire as well. Famous as of late for some of his fly cam work at some of your favorite sporting events, as well as, what's the name of the show in Waco, Scott?
Fixer Upper.
Fixer Upper helps document that. Mike Toman's room is where Mike Toman normally is. There is another photographer as well. So thank you everyone for joining. We now like to kind of talk about anything we've seen or heard in the news, how we're doing with our business loans or not, and what's kind of happening. Anyone like to kick that off?
I have a question. Yesterday when the Dallas County Commissioners extended the date to May 15th, then I heard, no, governor's going to override that and say, not so. Anybody hear that?
Mm-hmm. That's what we were talking about. Who has that authority?
Right. I heard a pushback from the governor when he heard about that in a press conference. He said, no, they're not going to override me. So,
Christine, do you have any response to that? You might know that answer to that.
Yeah, well, we're closely following what the local officials are recommending, only because we feel that'll help us to all kind of, rise in the same cadence. As far as we understand it, the local officials are the ones that have the decision-making power. But of course, there's a lot of conflict about that. But that's as we understand it from the research we've done.
I saw Dr. Paulus sent a thing over saying it looks like, Macy's is closing, some department stores are closing. And, what is that whole retail world going to look like? We'll find out here a little bit with Christine on that. But that's interesting too. My whole other side of the family there is in the shopping center world, and Gar, who puts those deals together, said, man, I don't know how much of those shopping centers are going to be around anymore in the way that we used to see it anyway. I had another interesting thing for those in the event world. IMEX reached out and said, hey, we need to get going for our big upcoming IMEX America, which that was a shock. And I mean, you knew they were, but it was nice to hear that and see that. And so they are moving forward. I'm trying to get Mark, their COO, on to talk about how big events are going to move forward and what precautions and things are going to put in place there.
The other thing I sent over, we talked about this, Sam, briefly, that the Wynn Resort in Vegas, obviously made a pretty awesome document public that relates to what they're doing within their resort, both from a staffing and guest standpoint, for safety and security. I'm sure Christine can talk about that in a couple minutes as well, but I think that's pretty awesome that they made that public for everyone to see. Pretty lengthy
And that's
document.
the key, right? Is that everyone is looking around right now going, can someone tell me what's happening? Is this okay? Is this safe? So it's so important. And I can't wait to hear Christine's side. We keep building up Christine. We can't wait. We can't wait. But I can't. I mean, you have to do that as a brand, as an establishment, say, we got this, or we've got what we're doing inside these doors anyway. You're safe. We're ready to show you our extreme hospitality and give you a great experience. And yeah, that was amazing to see that document. I've been going through it a little bit because I think we'll find out you have to look at every possible interaction somebody's going to have with you and see if that's changing or needs to be tweaked for these new times. Doug,
And you
got anything on that?
Well, one thing, it's not just the challenge we've got is, as everybody knows, the world is ruled by lawyers today, right? And we don't have legal precedent here to be able to say how safe is safe or what is the level of protection or due diligence. So one of the struggles, I've got 2 or 3 clients that have called, and one of the struggles we're trying to figure out is, how do we go forward in a way that is intelligent from a risk management standpoint, from the business's side, as well as from their customer side. A report just came out. One analyst, and I just forgot who they're from, but one of the big financial houses does not believe Disney will open the U.S. parks until 2021. Period. End of sentence. And so when you consider the drain that is, he moved his stock target from 164 on Disney to 114. Now there's another analyst who says he thinks they're going to open July 1st. So, it's a world full of uncertainty, but it's not just the procedural part. We don't have, like I said, one of the big things is we don't have legal precedent that helps guide what you go do when you're sitting in the boardroom or in the top deck. Is we use that as a risk management filter. We don't have one right now. And I can't wait to hear what Christine's got to say about that myself.
Yep.
Well, let's jump right into what she has to say. And let's welcome Christine, who is the COO or EO or EONOO of Makeready Experience. And they manage, design, and operate unique hotel experiences, unique eating and food experiences, as well as retail experiences. So they take the way you normally do it and do it in a completely different way and connect with you in a much more meaningful way. We spoke with her on one of our early episodes. By the way, this is episode 18. Thank you everyone for joining. And we were talking to her at the time of, this happened. What are you doing right now? And then since then, we've been talking about what do people do and how do they move forward. And so today we're going to speak with Christine as to how she is moving forward, because we hear several of the states are opening up, and what does that look like? So welcome, Christine. And we appreciate your time. We know you're on call after call after call. So thank you for your time here. But tell us, so last heard, everything is shut down. It's going to open sometime in the future. We don't know when. We've got some people on hold and some people on furlough, and we're kind of putting a plan together for when we start to open. And so now you're looking at starting to open. So what are some of the things you're looking at, like when, in order to prepare and get ready?
Thanks, Sam. This is a fun phone call for me to join. So I've tried to join a few times over the past couple of weeks. I think you guys are doing a great job, and it's I always find it inspiring. What we've struggled with, like everyone, and as Doug really eloquently said, there is no very specific guidance. And so we even struggled with what is the right time for us to actually open our operations, because as you know, hotels are able to still be open in some of the cities in which we operate. And there's so much speculation on when is the business demand going to be there, when is it safe to open. And so I made the decision about 10 days ago that we're going to use a factual data point when the local city officials say that businesses, that shelter in place is released. 3 days after that is when we will open all of our hotel operations. And that just helps us to have a factual date in order to start a critical path from. Otherwise it was, hey, let's wait till June or Memorial Day or July sounds great. But because of the unpredictability of the situation, I just felt it was important for everyone to have a data point. So that's for our hotel operations. All of our restaurants, bars, and retail are all going to be based off of occupancy. And so we have thresholds of 10, 20, 30, 40% occupancy, at which will trigger a different, which will trigger each one of those operations to begin staffing and opening accordingly. The bigger question, and what we're all in, I think, globally struggling with, is what are our operational changes that we're going to implement. And we put together 4 boxes that are really critical for us to check when we're making the decisions. And we're using many resources, which we can talk about. Because of what we do for a living, the first box is, how do we ensure that we are still hospitable and caring to our guests and any interaction or communication that we have to them? The second one is really focusing on the safety of the team members and the guests. Is it safe? The third is, how do we make sure that we're building trust and confidence in our communication? And in order to build confidence and trust, we have to create operational strategies that we truly are able to implement thoroughly. We're able to message it thoroughly, and we're able to do it for a long period of time. Because there's so many ideas out there, there's only certain operational strategies that we will really be able to commit to. Saying that we're going to set our event spaces up with everybody being 6 feet apart for every conference moving forward, that's not a reality. We won't be able to do that, because businesses will come in and a meeting planner will come in and say, hey, I need to fit 150 people in that ballroom. So thanks for your recommendation, but all my people are going to sit 4 feet from each other. So that's a good example of, sure, that sounds great, but is that something that we can really, that we can say we're going to do it and keep our promises, and therefore continue to gain trust and confidence that we are operating underneath the best safety guidelines as possible. So kind of having those 4 boxes is helping us to go department by department and implement new strategies.
So on that, what has been your biggest, wow, we have never thought about this, that's going to completely change everything? Like on that document that Robbie shared with the WIN, you never think about it until you think about it and go, oh my gosh, yeah, like valet parking, right?
That's
so
the
the
one.
WIN said, yeah, that's the one. They said no more.
That's the one that's a real challenge for us, because we can, some of our hotels we can offer self-parking, but most of our hotels we cannot offer self-parking. And you know, so many of our different departments, we can have masks and gloves and hygiene methods, but asking a team member to get into a guest car and breathe that air when it's, you know, 110 degrees outside in Dallas, and have them be in that car for, you know, for sometimes up to 6 and 7 minutes, that's a problem. So that right there is our biggest issue. So I don't know if you and Robbie talked about that,
okay.
but I was telling him this morning, it's a conundrum for us for sure.
Okay. So what happens then? Because you did have to put a lot of people on furlough or on standby, or in some state, and some. So you do and don't know when all these things are going to reopen. So how how are you strategizing or putting people in place to start getting on board with, here's our new operating procedures and here's how we're going to do this, and we've got this many days to get onto that? I mean, are
Yeah.
you reaching out to everyone and talking to them once a week or every day, or how's that going, and how do you think that's working?
It's well, it's pretty complicated, and we are actually having to nearly speak to every team member one-on-one because there's a couple real complications. One is we want to bring some people back to work. They don't have childcare. So we're looking at, do we partner with a third-party childcare provider in some of our locations? Because they're some of our best team members, but they have a 7-year-old and therefore they can't come back to work. So do we hold that job for them? Do we give that job away? Real conundrum. The second is, our vision was that we would slowly bring people back on 2 and 3 days as the business builds. What we've learned is that because of this unemployment supplement, we have people making more money on unemployment, and it's really a shit show when it comes to how the government is helping to supplement a lot of these unemployment claims. And they're making more money than they would with us until they come back to 4 days a week. So almost full time, 80% of their pay. And that goes on to till July. So that's creating a whole nother issue. What we're looking at is 3 strategies. One is, do we begin implementing 3 and 4 day work weeks where we can have people come in and work 3 12-hour shifts or 4 10-hour shifts? We're also looking to partner with local hotels and restaurants and say, hey, we'll bring them back 3 days. You bring them back 2 days. That gets them full-time pay. And we can get them out of unemployment, and we both get the resources, because the problem is we need the people to start to build the business, but we need them only 2 or 3 days at a time. And then the third strategy that we're kind of working through is, do we just bring back managers and have them do 2 different jobs part-time, which gives them full-time work? So luckily we have some cross-training that's happened at some of our hotels, but others we don't. So that's, the unemployment thing's a big issue that we've stumbled upon here.
So Doug's got to be smiling, because one of the things he's been telling us, look, he is smiling. One of the things he's been telling us is that you can't come up with this one big plan. You kind of got to have several different plans together and be ready to kind of execute on those and take those as far as you can.
And we're even talking about inside plans, mini plans that we're changing inside the framework of the plans, right? And so it's in a way it's a absolutely incredible mental exercise, to work this. So I'm working with one of the biggest cleaning firms in the country. Okay. And, their business is exploding, but they've never had the challenges that they've got right now. And so, to kind of talk to something Christine was talking about, we've got 2 new boxes that we've started working on, just like she had her 4. And our 2 are around consistency and enforceability. Mm-hmm. Because the fact of the matter is we've looked at a lot of our plans in the past. We all know that you'd have a plan in place and you kind of hope you got to 50 or 60% of the degree of enforceability of that plan. Well, when you're trying to be clean or safe, you've got to get to 98 or 100. Mm-hmm. And that's deeper than we've ever gone in a lot of businesses. And so it's a new level of how do we monitor, manage, and enforce some of our protocols. And so that's fascinating, and I love the way Christine's doing it. And then the other thing is that I've got, Christine, I can't tell you how many people have called me and said, how do I get around unemployment?
Yeah, amazing.
I mean, but I had some of the smartest people I know that literally they called and said, the government has just destroyed our ability to re-recruit and keep our people on. And these are people who have over 100,000 employees. And they're now saying they think they're going to lose 60% of their workforce between the unemployment and people not figuring out how to get back because they're going to lose their will to work and going someplace else. You know, the bonuses some of these other companies are paying are incredible to get people on board to do warehouse jobs, driver jobs, etc. So it's interesting. One note, and I think, Christine, you're sitting in a great place, and what you've done is crucial. So talking to another company you guys might recognize that has fruit in their name, right? That I can't talk about because of NDAs.
Fruit of the Loom.
What's that?
Fruit of the Loom. Yeah. Okay.
That was going to be my guess too.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's talking about.
But one of the things that the work that's going on is all around the employee experience that they had built before and trying to maintain it, because everybody knew that that employee experience was unique to that logo.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I make sure that they remember that, so that when they come back, they're not coming back just for the paycheck, but for the unique experience. And I know a lot of what you do, you know, it's not just for your guests that's unique, it's that employee that creates that. And so it's the one-on-one conversations, everything else are fantastic, trying to keep that connection and experience.
So Christine, your point 3 is that trust and with both with your employees and your clients, I would think. So it's kind of going back to that Disney model of they're cleaning up the park before it's even open, just so that you're aware, like they're overcompensating. I mean, you've probably got to do a lot of that. And I'm sure you've been looking at how do we over clean and over sanitize rooms and make sure we spend a little longer time when people are around with these cool machines doing it. Is that kind of stuff popping up and happening all over the place?
And what's that training look like?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you have to go back and retrain everyone.
We currently we have a tremendous amount of work at each one of our hotels going on, which is truly just painting, cleaning, deep cleaning, replacing carpets, anything that honestly we have well capitalized hotels and businesses. So anything that it's like kind of nice to have an entire vacant building that you can just really get in there and do a great job. We're taking advantage of that time to do it now. So that is only a big step in helping towards just showcasing, a beautiful, clean, fresh start for each one of our properties for the team to come back to, if it's in their work environment or the guest. And then we're also implementing new training, as Robbie said. So the reason we're not opening until 3 days after shelter in place is released is because we are implementing full training sessions, teaching our team on how to engage with our guests, on our new cleaning procedures. We're reducing the amount of rooms that, their productivity of how many rooms each housekeeper was given. And so a lot of that training will happen swiftly, but it's just going to take a couple days to get everyone on board.
Christine, can I ask a question regarding opening? Kind of a RevPAR question. What's the price point strategy as you re-emerge into the market?
Christine, look at Kimball throwing out RevPAR. I mean,
ADR,
all the
yeah.
Wait till he stands up. Wait till he stands up.
Not doing that. Not doing that.
Learning the hotel lingo.
He kind of looks like a GM.
Well,
he looks like a GM right now.
I've been fortunate to have hotel industry clients for many years, and they've taught me the value of maintaining RevPAR.
Yep, it's good. That's right. So really great question, and we actually spoke about this very, very early on when this scenario started to happen, because at that time when this started, what we thought was going to happen is our worst case scenario of going down to 20 or 30% occupancy. We thought is the worst possible thing that could happen. And the direction we gave them, and we still stay true to this, is we want to hold our rate integrity. And so we don't want to become one of the lowest rated hotels. No. There is a value proposition. There's a level of service that we're still very committed to. And so we are really holding on to that. What we are doing is that we are working really closely with groups and we will negotiate a lower, better rate for group business. That's not such a public rate. That's more of an internal rate so that we can get the business on the books. And we also want to be good partners to some of the businesses who have been loyal to us over the years. So therefore, we're willing to just help that partnership out and give better rates there. But as far as some of our long-term business travel, our BT rates, we're going to hold that pretty strong. We think that once the Deloittes and McKinseys and some of our big business travel pieces of business start to come back, they're going to pay the rates that they did previously. At some of our hotels, we do have amenity and destination fees. And so we're looking at reducing those during this time. And then some of our ancillary fees, like the valet and the self-parking and things of that nature.
I just wondered, like, if there would be incentives, say to the leisure traveler, hey, if you're the first one in here in June, get, just a short-term discounted price point. I wondered is that going to be an industry kind of event?
I think it will, certainly for that transient guest. And, we're putting together packages such as like celebrate your belated birthday or anniversary for those people that weren't able to celebrate. We're giving them a reduced rate. We're also talking a lot about, as far as not just ADR, but your RevPAR question is, how do we incorporate a really reduced food and beverage credit that can help people stay in the hotel? It can help our team members get back to work. So they're spending money in food and beverage while they're getting a great, an overall great stay.
What have you been
can
saying?
you also talk, I think it's interesting, sorry, Sam, you talk about what, Denver, Dallas, Nashville, some of the bigger, more convention-driven destinations, obviously the last thing in the world anyone wants at any of those destinations is for everyone to just start trying to buy business, right? From a group perspective, what sort of dialogue are your leaders having with other properties in your comp sets to make sure, clearly you can't get into the whole price fix model, but you don't want everyone to start trying to buy business and there goes the rate integrity for the entire city. So I would think it would be for the dialogue to be taking place between leaders at other properties. Yeah,
it's interesting, an old dog doesn't change its tricks or something. I'm trying to think of what's the right term there, but
that's close enough.
Right. We've spoken a lot about that, and our directors of sales and marketing, our DOSMs, and our directors of revenue management, our dorms, they are the ones that have always communicated most within their comp set, right, to their colleagues in the market. What we're learning is those hotels and those leaders that always struggled to keep their rate integrity are still struggling to keep that rate integrity and are going after that low business. Those in which we were a lot of collaboration, a lot of like-mindedness in the product and the, adding value for the overall stay, that's the team that still remains to be very collaborative and very committed to, hey, let's hold our rate integrity. Let's do great to bring business into the city. But let's not go so low that it doesn't, and once you go so far in your rate integrity, that road coming back is so incredibly hard. And so everybody is very cognizant of, let's not make it a tough 3 years, let's make it a tough next year. And let's not make this last any longer than it needs to.
Well, yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting because there's so many different properties, certainly newer properties that are just come on. And as you and I both, and anyone in the hotel industry is known for years, not anybody, but a lot of people can run busy hotels, right? It's like, what sort of systems and protocol are in place? None of those are in place to deal with what we're dealing with right now, right? But it's going to be interesting coming out of this. Some of your comp sets, and just in Dallas, it'll be interesting to see if they're forced to do things a little bit differently from a rate integrity standpoint, just because they don't have the capital to continue.
That is right, and we're having our bi-weekly GM calls, and our last one, I invited the directors of finance, and I told them this is going to be one of the hardest positions in your career, because operating at a profitability, operating to be profitable at an occupancy at 20, 30, 40% is beyond challenging. And you're going to have to be your best business leader and decision maker and be a very thoughtful, tough decisions way, because it is very, very hard to run a low occupancy business and make it profitable. And so they're going to have to fight harder than they have in probably most of the positions in their career to get this right.
Go ahead, Sam. Sorry, interrupted.
Yeah,
you there a couple
I was
times.
just curious. What are you seeing or forecasting or expecting for the type of customers? I mean, is it group? Is it people from out of town? Do you think people are going to be comfortable jumping on a plane and going, or is it local groups, or is it just individual?
Yeah, you know, it's different in each one of our markets, but June and July are remaining strong for us in the group business. Now,
Wow.
I think that we would have started to see some pretty aggressive cancellations in group in June. I mean, to be sure, we've probably lost in June, we've lost about 50% of our business, but that 50% that remains is holding strong right now. So that's encouraging. The other thing is, I'll give you kind of a relative number here, like the Adolphus last week, they booked about $280,000 in business in our Dallas location for the back half of the year. That's not a tremendous amount, but compared to where, the situation that we're in, that's pretty encouraging. The
Christine,
citywide,
is that new business? Is that new business or is that rebooked business?
no, that's totally new business, and so that's
Wow.
that was pretty substantial.
Yeah.
Most of our groups that canceled for May and June, and when I say most, it's probably about 85%, have rebooked or we're working through rebooking negotiations. Many of those have rebooked into next year, unfortunately, but at least they are rebooking and they're not fully canceling.
In those cases, Christine, when they rebook, are you rolling over without penalty to these clients? Yeah, that's what I'm hearing in the industry.
Yeah. We at first we were not, but then when it became a pandemic, that really changed really a lot of our contractual agreements, and so a lot of those cancellation fees that we were beginning to collect, we returned or put them towards their next booking.
Force majeure.
What happens when what's happening when your clients are rebooking on dates that you already have booked down the road? Are you finding that they're looking for dates that you already have bookings for, or?
Yeah, well, that's the big problem, right? Is that that's one of the reasons a lot of these citywides just aren't able to rebook, is because there's just not space for them. But within the hotels, the group business, we're really just being aggressive with calling up anyone that is the space booked and seeing if we can help to squish or move or relocate. But some of that business we're losing. What I will say we're finding interesting is that piece of business are being very flexible with the months. So if they wanted something in February to rebook, we simply don't have it. They're very interested in just rebooking it for March. So there's this unique loyalty that I see happening, that they want to be a good business partner to us, and they're trying to say, hey, we want to keep this business with you. So let's just work through a lot of the different options and be flexible and come up with different plans to try to make it work. So I think that's a testament to our sales team. I mean, they're very, very connective, relational sales teams. And so they're fighting hard to keep that business within that hotel, which is nice.
Can I jump in and ask Doug? Doug, you mentioned force majeure. Can you sort of just give a high-level overview of that force majeure concept? And I'm curious, is it across all industries, or is it a little more industry specific? For instance, Sam and I and Alberto and Mike and Scott are more of a service-based, and I'm trying to understand if it's different per industry.
Okay, so the answer is yes, and it can even be different. No, it can even be different from contract to contract. Force majeure is the overarching term used legally that defines things out of our control.
Right.
Most often it's referred to as an act of God. Okay. And so your contract language basically will start to stipulate that in the event of force majeure, or even sometimes you use the words an act of God, different things will be enacted inside that contractual world, right? And it changes how you pay, how you refund, how you do a whole lot of different things. So it is literally different from place to place. There are many companies, the insurance industry is probably the biggest advantage, that they use force majeure to get out of billions and billions and billions of dollars of claims a year, unless you've got the right policies written. So in this case, what you got is this virus hasn't yet been established, by the way, legally as an act of God or a force majeure, but the vast majority of companies that I'm aware of are considering it that already, which is a positive thing. They're not trying to hide. And so that kind of, I'll stop there, but I can answer more questions,
Well,
but that's.
I guess one other question I had was, if it's not written in my particular contract, if I don't have that clause, is it implied?
Yes.
You know, it is.
Yeah. If you come into a lawsuit, generally speaking, if you're the plaintiff, the defendant will argue force majeure, and then it's up to the court to decide what the situation is. But that is a defensible thing.
Mm-hmm.
That I cannot be held accountable, or if anybody else is in the legal side, I'm held harmless is the legal term for acts of God.
Yes. So it works both ways, perhaps.
Oh, it absolutely can work both ways.
I can't get there as your vendor, or you're not going to pay me for that event.
Yes.
It works both ways.
And depends on the industry, right? So airlines will not give you, as one of the easiest examples, airlines will not pay you back if something happens because of a storm, right? Even though their policies say, if I'm 5 hours late, I owe you this. They don't have to if it's a storm that held them back, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Christine, it's interesting. One of the models, speaking of airlines, one of the models that we're working at, so I'm kind of curious with you, that we've talked about in the hospitality industry, and we've seen kind of the breakouts of who's coming back first, and at least what our expectations are. But one of the things that's interesting is there's an expectation that we're going to have 6 months of extreme financial pain, as there's going to be a layer of people who are in absolute financial ruins, who are going to completely destroy the cost factors and in the industry just to try to buy enough business to stay whole. And the people who are trying to hold their brand standards are going to have to look to be able to maintain that in the face of that pricing for a period of time. Is that something you guys are thinking about?
It is, and it's a great topic. We, we're looking at what does it look like from as we rewrite all of these budgets and rewrite all of our forecasts. And I think it's 2 years before we are back to the 2019, 2020 original numbers. And I think a lot of that comes into that price sensitivity, and we're working hard to hold that rate integrity. Yep. I think that there's just simply going to be businesses that want to do business with hotels and have their events. They are just not going to be able to pay that rate that they paid previously. Right. And that's going to cross over so many of the industries that we do business with, that we're going to be forced into negotiating those rates with them.
Yep, that's what we're seeing. The models that I'm working with across the industry, it's basically the same thing. 18 months earliest, good news. 36 months is probably the best case, or the most common case. So I think you're spot on. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, Christine. So during this time, you've had to do things completely different. Anything that you've done or you've become accustomed to, and hey, this isn't too bad, that you think you might carry going forward, even when we do get back to normal?
And please don't say work from home every day.
Yeah.
I don't know. The project list is getting done at home pretty aggressively, I got to say. You know, what I have really enjoyed is I'm a daily. I exercise daily, no matter if I'm traveling or what I'm doing. What I don't do is really take like I've been able to take some really good long walks, and it just helps give me a really good clarity break. And it's when I find myself coming up with some of my best ideas. So really having a good 30-minute out is taking a good 45 or hour and 15-minute long walk. So I hope that really continues, and I'm able to find the time to do that, because I just found it really beneficial.
Don't you find yourself still on the phone when you're doing that though?
No, not on my clarity. No, I'm listening to my podcasts. I'm
Okay.
ideating, I'm thinking. It's good.
All right. I have a question about design. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I found myself leaving devices at home now when I go do that, and yeah, I mean, it's forced concentration, I guess, which is something we normally don't have the time for.
It's nice.
Hey, question, you know, as you go through, I know you have a couple of projects under development right now. Do you foresee any sort of changes from a structural standpoint, be it from the guest arrival experience or from the type of surfaces maybe that you guys are utilizing on in some of the properties that you're designing right now? I mean, or is no thought being given to any of that given the coronavirus?
So in the short term operationally, yes, but I think you're referring to, like, as we're designing, we're working on 3 new hotel designs right now. And so are you speaking about with our design team, like, hey, is there something that we're going to need to change interaction? Yeah. The only thing that we're really focusing on right now is our vestibules and entrances. What is that going to look like moving forward? And, you know, right now we have a lot of guest interaction between bell services and valet and those vestibules. So we are talking about that. The other is we're just talking about some of the functionality of our storage spaces, like our housekeeping closets and things of that nature. Are we going to have to expand some of those footprints to be able to accommodate some of the new hygiene and cleanliness processes? But as far as any spatial distancing or any spatial layouts or you know, our check-in and guest experiences, we're really not. We've talked about it, but there's nothing that we think is really critical for the way of the future. We think a lot of it's going to be just in operational standards more than physical changes in the layouts of the buildings.
Okay, any other questions for Christine, or anything further you want to share with us, Christine, that we should know about?
I don't have anything else. I think this has been a fun conversation.
Oh, thanks. It's been really interesting.
So who's opening first then right now? Who's up on the board?
The Alita. The Alita is, you know, Georgia, that crazy southern state. They've said, hey, let's just do this. And so right now, the Alita, and then behind that would be Denver. Dallas is last, actually, on the shelter in place, as you know, you spoke about in the beginning. So
that's a great question, Sam, though, not to keep everyone, but if the Alita opens, and what is the projected date that might happen right now?
May 3rd.
So if May 3rd comes, so what is the protocol going to be? Are front desk agents wearing masks? Or, you know, what's going to happen with housekeeping and the logistics of all of that?
Yes. So our back of the house or heart of the house team members are going to wear masks and gloves. Our guest service agents are going to start out wearing masks. Ideally, that won't last too terribly long. And that interaction with our guest service agent, since you mentioned that, you know, a lot of the onus is going to be on the traveler here for the mask situation. Anybody in food service and housekeeping, anybody that's entering somebody's room, you know, we're considering not providing housekeeping services except for upon request, so that the guest can say, yes, I want you to enter my room. Yes, I'm comfortable with you entering the room. All housekeepers will wear gloves and masks. but we also don't want to make it challenging for the guest to feel uncomfortable and say, hey, I really don't want somebody in my room. So we think the reverse of that, to say we're not going to enter unless you specifically say yes, you want us to, and then we're all good and we'll proceed with our housekeeping duties. We are looking at plexiglass shields essentially for some of our coffee shops where Kimball's working today. He might have to start to have a plexiglass shield behind him that comes down between some of those interactions of more of those counter style food services that we have.
Actually, I've been required to have a plexiglass shield in front of me everywhere I go.
Good. You'll train the team well.
All right. Well, thanks. It was fun.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. We really appreciate it. For everyone, we have nothing in particular scheduled tomorrow. We'll just talk through everything that's going on. I'm getting hit by my banker now, so that'll be interesting to see if our loan came through. Next Tuesday, we have another how to deal in the times coach coming on to give us some tips. And of course, we'll have happy hour at 4 o'clock on Friday. So be sure to join us there. But in the meantime, wash your hands, stay home, stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m.